Chapter 16 opens up with more trouble from the religious people. It says the Pharisees and Sadducees asked Jesus to show them a sign from heaven to prove his authority. At first you could be thinking, what's the big deal? I ask God for a sign all the time. But remember, from even just the last chapter in Matthew, these people were constantly trying to trap Jesus. They weren't just saying, Jesus, show us a sign, show us the way. They were saying, Jesus, prove yourself. And Jesus knew the intentions of their heart, which is why he said, only an evil and adulterous generation looks for a sign, but none will be given except the sign of Jonah. If you remember the story of Jonah, Jonah's in the belly of the fish for 3 days before he's spit out and freed. So, if Jesus is Jonah in this analogy, then the religious people know that they're the Ninevites. Can you imagine these people? They're probably fuming. No matter how hard they try, they just can't ever seem to trap Jesus. And he even takes it a step further to call them out in their pride. Later, Jesus warns the disciples against the deceptive teaching of the Pharisees and Sadducees. When Jesus got to Caesarea Philippi, he asked the disciples, "Who do people say the Son of Man is?" They're like, well, some say John the Baptist, some Elijah, some Jeremiah, maybe one of the prophets. Then Jesus says, well, what about you? Who do you say I am? Peter immediately says, oh, well, the Messiah, the Son of the living God. So Jesus says, blessed are you. You didn't hear this from any human being. Then Jesus tells Peter a very iconic verse that we talk about a lot in the church. It goes like this. Now I say to you that you are Peter, which means rock, and upon this rock I will build my church, and all the powers of hell will not conquer it, and I will give you the keys of the kingdom of heaven. Whatever you forbid on earth will be forbidden in heaven, and whatever you permit on earth will be permitted in heaven. When Jesus asked who he thought he was, Peter replied, the Messiah, the Son of the living God. I think Jesus is using a play on words to tell Peter that, yes, his name means rock, but the church will be built on Jesus, the true rock, not on a person. It's as if Jesus was saying, yes, I am the Messiah, the rock, and on this rock I will build my church. I don't think this means Jesus wouldn't use Peter or the other disciples. They were the church, just like we are the church, not a building. At the end of the chapter, Jesus finally talks plainly to his disciples. He tells them he will suffer at the hands of the elders and the religious people, will die, and will raise to life in 3 days. Then he tells them, if any of you wants to be my follower, you must give up your own way. Take up your cross and follow me. If you try to hang on to your life, you will lose it. But if you give up your life for my sake, you will save it. I think sometimes we read that and we think we need to do more or prove ourselves in order to be his disciples. Take up your cross. It's up to you. But Jesus is saying the opposite. When he says to take up your cross and follow me, he's saying to surrender. We must die to ourselves. We cannot do enough or be enough. In order to be his disciple, we must give up our way and follow his way. Take up your cross, die to yourself. It's like Jesus is saying, trust me. Give up your control over your life because I offer something better. You think you know better, but I will give you rest for your souls. I can't help think about my kids when I read this. So many times a day I think to myself, kid, trust me. Believe it or not, I know better and you will be so much happier my way. My 3-year-old thinks that he knows more than me. He thinks that his way is better. But we all know how false that is. Believe it or not, I'm smarter than him. And I know if he would just give up his own way and follow me, his life will be so much better. Give up your own way. If you try to hang on to your life, you will lose it. But if you give up your life for my sake, you will save it. Jesus is the rock. He is the head over his church, us. To be his church, we must die to ourselves and allow him to change us to become who we were created to be. And now you can stop the video, talk amongst yourselves, and I'll see you Sunday in church.